Good evening, and welcome to night 3 of our Core of Magic. So, let's give it about 5 minutes. We're going to play a little bit of music. If you have not watched night 1 and night 2, please stop and go watch night 1. Look forward to seeing you back here afterwards. For those of you who are joining in sequence, please give me a few minutes so we can get everybody on and we'll get started. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. Obviously, I got the fire going right this time. I'm cooking over here. We had a really good rainstorm this afternoon and did a great cleansing on our property. So, welcome to the spirits and to the things we cannot see. We welcome you as well. So we're halfway there. At the conclusion of tonight, we'll only have 2 classes left for the 5-day or the 5-night course. Upon conclusion of that, I will plan on doing a video once a week, Sunday nights at sunset in Louisiana. I'll post it the week before, so that way everyone knows what time it is. But this will give you guys an opportunity to hear more of what we've learned and more of what we're going to do. But I need your help. I need you to ask questions in subject matter form so that I can build an itinerary, a schedule.
I'll be there too.
Miss Shaw's going to come to some of them. If I get enough alcohol down her throat, she's likely to get in front of the camera and actually do something. We can always hope. So let's get started. Again, thank you for coming. So tonight, the first Hermetic Law that we're going to talk about is the Law of Attraction. Since the 1980s, there's been a movement that has used the law of attraction as a self-help tool. But let's be clear. The law of attraction simply states what we vibrate and resonate as will attract the same thing. So like attracts like. This is the second conjure rule, but it's a very important Hermetic law as well. So if we're depressed and we stay in that low vibrational frequency, all will attract. There's more things that depress us. If we cannot save money, we will never be able to save money as long as our vibrational frequency remains the same. The law of attraction does not say what I think about will manifest and become my reality. It says what I focus on will become my reality. The second law we're going to talk about tonight is the law of abundance. So if the universe is constantly expanding and growing, and if we stop and think about it, there is not a shortage of any large subject idea, right? There might be shortages of particular fruits or particular vegetables or a particular meat, or there might be a shortage of a specific emotion. But on a grand scale, if the universe is constantly expanding and growing, that means that there is an abundance of everything we could need for our life, right? So the law of abundance simply states that there is always enough. There is never a shortage. You simply have to put in the effort to draw it to you. And then the last law is the law for tonight is the law of growth. The law of growth is two parts. One, the universe is constantly expanding and growing. And two, because we are part of the universe, that divine oneness, we are also constantly expanding and growing. We are also abundant. So when we think we don't have time, we have to recognize what time is. Time is a man-made tool to create schedule and placing of certain things. If we didn't have time, the concept of time, we would simply go from one task to the other until we became tired, and then we go to sleep. And we'd get up when we woke up, and we'd begin the next task, and when we got hungry, we'd stop and eat, and when we got thirsty, we'd stop and drink, and when we got tired, we'd stop and sleep. And we'd live a very different lifestyle. But because of the invention and the monetary value of time, we don't get to do that. So we always think that we don't have time to accomplish something. Oh, I don't have time to do that today. I'll get to it tomorrow. Oh, I don't have the time to do that. I've got to take care of 2 little kids, or I got to take care of my sick mother, or I've got to go to work. There is no time. There is no such thing as time. The law of growth says, and the law of abundance says, we're constantly expanding and growing. The law of abundance says there is never a shortage of anything. So if you don't have the time, it's because you're spending that time doing something else. Is that something else helping you grow and develop and become better? Or is that something else helping somebody else? I have to go to the second page. Tonight we're going to talk about 2 parts of self. The first part of self is super unique, and once you understand it, it gives you power in both the metaphysical world and in our physical world that few people learn how to master. And this is the part of self that is called the appearance. This is how people see us. This is what we project. This is the face or the mask that we put on our body so that people meet a specific person, a specific character. We do not act the same with our children as we do with our spouse. And we do not act the same with our spouse as we act with a stranger. This would be foolish and quite confusing. So, we can see that we have the power to shapeshift. Our physical body doesn't change, but how people can see us or perceive who we are does have the power to change. It is through this shapeshifting that we can travel through this world as anything we need to be. Think about that for a minute. It is in the idea that our appearance is part of self that makes it possible for us to travel in this world as anything we need to be. So if I need to be a meek man, I simply become a meek man. I lower my shoulders. I lower my gaze. I change my vibrational frequency. And I become a meek man. Not the strong man. Not the scary man. Just meek. Just little. And I can travel this way as long as I desire. But the moment I choose to change that, I can raise my shoulders. I can add the influx to my voice to make myself sound strong again. I can scrunch my gaze, and I can raise my vibrational frequency to that of a stature that is strong and powerful and present. It's my choice. How I choose to portray myself to the world is completely up to me. And the song that I played in the beginning, if you listened, you could hear it shapeshift. From the high octaves to the low octaves. The very same notes, the very same rhythm, yet in two different places. This appearance is also the only part that makes it possible for us to travel esoterically. When we want to travel between worlds or in the spirit realm, our body remains here. It is our appearance, or the projection of our appearance, that goes to the spirit world. Remote viewing, same thing. The body stays behind. It is our projection of self, our appearance, that travels to what it is that we want to look at. And we have the power to use that anywhere, anytime, any place within the universe, not just our reality. So appearance is a very important part of self. The next part of self that we're going to talk about, and I'm sorry it's taking me so long to read, I'm losing light that I can actually read with, is our ancestral fortune, luck, looks, skills, and etc. So if you look in the mirror, you've heard me say it this week several times. Our ancestors look back at us when we look in the mirror. This is because our ancestors have given us their features. The men in my family have had blue eyes for as far back as anybody can know. They've had fair hair and beards and big, happy cheeks for at least 4 generations. These are passed down. Academia calls it genetics. It is our ancestral fortune. And with our looks comes certain skills. If we have someone in our lineage, in our ancestral line, who was a crafter or an artist, when we pick up like tools, something inside of us, our blood, our memory, which is shared by our ancestors, will remember how to use those tools. And this is super valuable as we begin to connect with our ancestors. So when we go into the garden and we till the soil and we work with our hands, if we open ourselves up with the awareness meditation, we may get a glimpse at somebody in our ancestral line who was a gardener. It's called our ancestral fortune because it also is our good and bad luck. If you have a parent or a grandparent who is very unlucky, odds are you're going to be unlucky too, unless you break the cycle. And this is where the idea behind generational curses comes from. It's not necessarily always a curse. It's not necessarily that somebody put it on the family. Sometimes it's self-manifested, and it's been passed down for so long nobody knows its original origin. If you cleanse it away, you break it, you change it, you have the opportunity to change the family fortune to lucky instead of unlucky, or prosperous instead of unprosperous. We experience this today. One of the driving factors in our media today is the injustice and the inequality in education and opportunity between white culture and black culture. Part of this is the fortune that has been built on by both sides, or destroyed by both sides, depending on how you look at it and which part you look at. So we're not talking just a couple of generations here. Remember, generation's only 33 years. But slavery, African slavery in particular, was 600 years. And it was only 150 years ago or so. So there's only a handful of generations between the slavery generation and the non-slavery generation. So they have bad fortune, bad luck, bad opportunities because of a systemic problem created by the people of the time who took their fortune for personal gain and advancement. Right? And because we are, the whites are the offspring of those people who stole the fortune, we have white privilege. So there's an imbalance that needs to be fixed. And this doesn't happen in 1 or 2 generations. Think about it. 600 years is over 100 generations. So it's going to take some time to fix this misfortune. And it's when we work together as a society and as a community and as brothers and sisters of all colors that we can begin to rebuild those fortunes. We've been rebuilding them. It's not as bad as it was 60 years ago. It's nowhere near as bad as it was 100 years ago. It's still bad. It can get better. It needs to get better. But we have to work together to make that happen, not against each other. Ancestral fortune is that critical. Until we can right each side's ancestral fortune, ancestral luck, and chance, there'll always be an imbalance. So, the meditation we're going to talk about tonight is a discipline meditation. If so much of our reality is based off of our own thoughts, our own beliefs, our own practices, our own whimsical ideas, then we have to figure out how to rein it in. We have to figure out how to have control of it. So you open with the mindful meditation. You turn on your awareness, because it's always good to be aware of what's going on around you. And then You force your will upon your reality in a mundane, complete, worthless way. You create a dot in your imaginary mind that you can see in front of you. It can be any color, any shape, any size, but it can only do what you want it to do. It has to act as your will demands. Simple enough? Not really. Few people can actually create the dot their first try. If they can, then they have a little more control over their imagination and their will than most. But can they hold it while they do other things? Can they hold it while other things come into their field of view? You have to do it with your eyes open. You can't do it with your eyes closed. It's easy when there's nothing stimulating your sight to see a dot. It's completely different when you're looking at things to see a blue dot on top of my nose. And while I speak and move, that dot goes where you send it, regardless of what I'm doing, regardless of what I'm saying. Very challenging. Practice it. This is a reflection of how much control you have over your will. As you master your will, this will get easier, but never easy. I've been doing this for a very long time, and I struggle with the dot. I'm not afraid to admit it, but I use the dot every day for at least a couple of minutes, because it helps me remember that my reality is based off of my will and my intentions. And it strengthens my will and my intentions. And it calms me so I don't have whimsical ideas that destroy my future that I've been working on. So, the discipline meditation is to simply hold a dot within your imaginative reality with your eyes open that you can see while the world happens. Spend 10 minutes trying to hold the dot. If you get the dot, be happy, rejoice. Even if it's just for a flicker, be happy. If you begin to hold the dot, now make the dot do things. Make the dot shift and change colors, change shapes, change dimensions. Because the more you can do with this dot, and the longer you can hold this dot, the more in control of your reality your will have. Super valuable. Tonight we're going to talk about veneration also. Tonight we're going to talk about, if we're venerating our ancestors, something our ancestors venerated would also probably be pretty important. And that would be the deities and the gods of our ancestors. Those things that our ancestors deemed in control of their reality and their order, their balance. By doing this, we begin to build a bridge. So, one of the things that has occurred is in the last 15 or 20 years has been a very large misappropriation of African tradition. This is because a lot of Northern Europeaners were so separated from their ancestral line, from dogma and indoctrination for over 1,000 years, and in many cases up to 2,000 years, that they couldn't find anything that was ancestral that wasn't tainted with this indoctrination. So they had to go elsewhere. And that's acceptable for a time. It's acceptable to say the Maori are a warrior tribe and they're strong and they're powerful. And so when they do their dance, their war dance, it speaks to my heart, my soul, because I come from a warrior tribe. And I can do, if I'm invited, I can do a haka with members of a Maori tribe, if I'm invited. And I can continue to do that as long as I recognize that it is not my ancestral tradition. And doing it, I do not connect to my ancestors. I do not empower them nor my ancestral gods. I empower the Maori's ancestors and the Maori ancestral gods. So doing this doesn't serve me in the long run. It serves me in the short run, because I can then go home and I can use the 4 meditations that you'll learn this week, and I can find what my ancestors would have done that was like the haka, or synchronized with the haka. And then I can begin to rebuild my ancestral path, and I can stop using Maori tradition. So being allowed, being invited by another culture to participate gives us the opportunity to learn. It gives us the opportunity to take something back to our meditative space, so that we can then speak to our ancestors and our ancestral gods and find how we do it and how they did it. By doing this, we would actually stop the misappropriation and the misrepresentation of Northern Europeaners practicing African traditions. Sure, in the US, there's a large percentage of white folks who are not Northern European. They're Mediterranean. They even have African roots. That's great. But if you don't, then you're not talking to your ancestors, and you're not talking to your ancestral gods. I am Northern European. At no time are the Loa my ancestral gods or my ancestral powers. At no time are the African Loa, who are the communicators between the worlds, would ever look at me and say, oh, you're one of my children. Now, I have bridged that gap, and because I'm a shaman. And the way we bridge that gap is we open communication and we learn their traditions, and we respect that they are their traditions, not our traditions. And I've been able to speak with Loa. I've had voodoo practitioners actually tell me that I have Loa who walk with me. Those Loa who walk with me don't walk with me because of me. They walk with me because of the people I help. Living in the mixing pot of the United States, my clientele is mixed and diverse and span the globe. If I could only help Northern Europeaners, I'd have a problem. So I have to be open-minded. I have to be willing to walk into a hall that's not my ancestral hall and talk to things that aren't mine. You do this through respect. You do this through discipline and practice. You do this by understanding your ancestors and your ancestral deities, so that you can in turn talk to someone else's. This is how we bridge that gap, so that as a society of brothers and sisters of all nations, we can come together and begin to fix things that are broken. We can't do that if we stay in our own little private houses and our own little private cultures. It won't work. Diversity is super important, because we cannot all be the same, nor would we want to all be the same. But we also can't steal from others either. We can borrow, but we have to recognize where it comes from. By venerating others, we empower them. By venerating ourselves, our ancestors, and we empower ourselves. I hope that made sense. In conclusion, And I'm going to read this because it's super important that I get it right. What you say, do, think, and believe becomes your reality. What you say, do, think, and believe becomes your reality. Law of vibration, law of attraction, law of growth, law of abundance. It's all there. It's fed by your thoughts, by your will. The discipline meditation will help you achieve that if you practice it. So now I want you to start writing your narrative for as far back as you could remember. For the last 2 nights I've told you to think about it. Think about your past. Think about your weaknesses and your strengths. How would you change them? Now I want you to start writing them. And when you do this, I want you to do an awareness meditation to the first memory you can have. Not to your place of birth, not to your time of birth, to your first memory, that thing, that part of self. Go there and start writing that one in a way that makes you who you want to be today. Thank you so much. We're halfway through. Ms. Shaw and I appreciate you taking the time to listen to us. I love having you in my court, part of my family. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow night.